Welcome to the Real Chili Podcast.
And the Golden Eagles of Marquette University in Milwaukee are bound for the Final Four for only the third time ever.
5 seconds left. Marquette down by one, trying to avoid the upset. Blue the drive, the left hand. It's good. 1 second to play. Vander Blue has put Marquette in front by one.
And I want to win every day as basketball players, as students, and I want to win every day, most importantly, as people.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Real Chili Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lavender. I'm here with Pete Mohan. I'm here with Eric Pond. And fellas, sometimes in life, there are just moments. There are just things that you don't quite believe as they are happening. A certain recent election comes to mind. But last night, January 9th, Marquette traveled to Omaha, Nebraska, and it was one of the more entertaining games of the college basketball season, bar none. Our star, Markus Howard, put up 53 points. Pete Mohan, that was an amazing game.
I'm just glad we're in the first 48 because we might be able to solve this crime of Marcus murdering the hoops in Omaha.
So if you didn't see the game, Marquette came away with a 106-104 victory over Creighton in overtime. And truth be told, Marquette was down for a good chunk of this game. They managed to work their way back in the second half. But really, Eric, I think you tuned in a little bit later in the game, but just in time to see a Sam Hauser three-pointer to tie it with 0.8 seconds left. That was one wet shot.
No kidding. This was like a performance on a team level and on an individual level with Marcus for the ages, ladies and gentlemen. And I think it's one of those games that you tell future generations of MU fans about. Like, do you remember where you were when this happened? It was a win that I think seemed to get the entire sports world, or it seemed to get everyone talking about Marquette, and more specifically Markus Howard, which doesn't always happen. We know how sort of rare that is, and I think we can count on, one or two hands maybe the times in our fanhood where it really feels like the whole sports world's revolving around Marquette basketball. And it's a cool feeling.
Well, I want to point out, let's just throw the numbers out here. So Marcus had 53. His shooting performance was insane, but for perspective, he's the first guy to have two 50-plus point games in his career in over 20 years. I don't know if you guys know the exact number, and then I also found out that Marcus is the first to have 3 45-point performances in one season since Jody Meeks did it for Kentucky. So, I mean, that's some pretty insane company and some pretty insane records that he's setting. That dude is a beast.
So Paint Touches put this, our friends at Paint Touches, friends of the pod, put this on Twitter the other day after the game, and they said, no one's taking Markus Howard for granted, but sometimes it's hard to realize when we're in these moments just how special he is. I was just thinking back to last year when he had his 52-point game against Providence, and we published immediately a pod that was titled, Damn, the Markus Howard episode. And he's put up some incredible performances since then. Mohan, you just mentioned the 45-point ones. Obviously, we have this 53-point one. We, as fans, have borderline come to expect this from him, where when he does this, it's amazing. And just watching him do that, what he was able to do in overtime, just 3 threes in a row, scoring the first 11 points of overtime to grab the, victory from the jaws of defeat. But we have come to expect it, and that is just a testament to how amazing and how talented this guy is.
I think there's no question. Howard now has the 4 best scoring games in Marquette University basketball history. And the 10 three-pointers he hit last night, 10 for 14, went 71.4% from three-point land, not even a career high. It's absolutely jaw-dropping. He had 11 in a game twice last season. This guy's an all-timer. I don't think there's any way around it.
I kind of want to get some old school Marquette basketball stats from when the 3-point line came into Origin, because I'm willing to bet that Marcus has like more 3-pointers in this season than a few Marquette teams' entire seasons back in the day.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to bet that. We should look that up and then tweet about that.
That's got to be true. And I know we're going to talk about this and dive into it a little bit more later in a different way, but I oftentimes find myself doing this in my head when you take college stats and performances and try to extrapolate those out to, what does that equate to in an NBA game? It's very hard to do that, but in a simple way, you can do it just taking a 48-minute game to a 40-minute game, taking those stats and blowing them out. If you look at it, and this is why this is so rare, what Marcus has done, again, with that simple equation is the equivalent of putting up a 64-point game, a 62-point game, and two 54-point games in the last 12 months. It's jaw-dropping.
It's absolutely insane. I looked at a lot of materials today. We're recording this on Thursday, the day after the game. Marcus is right there in the hunt of player of the year. We're not just talking Big East player of the year, right? We're talking national player of the year. Obviously, there's some stiff competition in Zion Williamson and some other names. I forget the kid's name out of Murray State. But Markus Howard is right there. And can we just let it soak in for a minute that there is a semi-legitimate candidate on our roster who is a national player of the year candidate, someone who people are mentioning as – has the ability to carry a team to a Final Four. There's not enough superlatives for his performance. I want to walk through the game just a little bit because this game wasn't all about him, particularly if you watched the first half. Mohan, if you'll remember from the text chain, I got pretty negative pretty early on in this game because I think
Can I quote your tweet or your tweet?
I think you liked it. But, I mean, what did we see in the first half? I think we saw – a prolific Creighton offense who's shooting 57% from three in the first half and over 55% from the field. Really, have a double-digit lead on Marquette for most of the first half. And it didn't feel like a great performance from Marquette early on, did it, Pete?
I just want to give props to Creighton because in that first half, it was like watching the Warriors. I mean, the ball was popping, the way they run their offense on the perimeter, not a lot through the post at all. They get dribble penetration and they kick and there's guys open for three. And part of that is on Marquette for not being prepared for that pace. But I think you got to give credit to Creighton because their offensive performance in that first part of the first half was extremely impressive to me. And you have guys all over the court that can shoot. Mintz really impressed me. I mean, he's a really good guard, and Ballack is always there making plays. Some of those threes that they hit, were from, 10 feet behind the line. Mm-hmm. So you have to give Creighton credit for an exceptional offensive performance as well. And I mean, look at the final score. Both teams were over 100 and they scored 40 combined points in overtime. So it's just two amazing offenses and really enjoyable to watch.
And a lot of those threes that you mentioned in the first half in particular were contested. So, I think you could look at the score at points throughout the first half and think that Marquette was getting blown out, and they certainly were to a certain extent. But I agree. I think it's a great point that Marquette was just clicking really Creighton, was clicking at a really, really high level.
Well, I just want to say one more thing is, we kind of came into this game wondering, was the defense going to step up and win us this game? And it's not a very simple answer because as you just brought up, it really kind of got off to a rough start. And I think if you asked us after 10 minutes of this game, we would say there's no chance of winning if our defense continues to play like that.
Right.
And really they slowed the pace of Creighton's scoring down. And I think just did a little bit better of chasing them off the line. Instead of worrying about getting beat off the dribble, these guys are starting to realize that they have Theo John back there to protect the rim. And it's not like Creighton is full of really fearsome drivers. So I think that was a nice adjustment. at least by Wojo, to get them to just really commit to running guys off the line and making them penetrate again. I think it forced them into a few more turnovers and just generally slowed them from getting an earlier shot in the shot clock. So I think that even though the defense wasn't great on the whole, the progression during the game was something that I noticed. And I think that's the reason that we were able to creep back and eventually get the win.
So getting to the second half, Marquette, this is when Marquette really started to go off. Marquette ended up shooting 60% from three, 6 of 10 in the second half. They were, again, over 53% from the field in the second half. But coming right, let's just fast forward because I want to get to it and I want to talk to it because I really haven't had a chance to talk to it. Coming down to the final couple of possessions at the end of regulation, right? So it was an 85-80 game, and Marquette had the ball with just, I think there was maybe 17 seconds left on the clock, maybe 8 actually. They brought the ball up the court, and Chartouni, someone took a shot. They missed. Chartouni was under the basket with like 3 or 4 Creighton players around him, got a rebound, missed the bunny, got a second rebound, and laid it in with less than a second left. There was about 0.6, 0.8 left on the clock. And then Creighton inbounds the ball, but no one touches the ball.
They threw the Hail Mary pass down
the Hail Mary. Right. No one touched the ball. No Creighton player, no Marquette player. And so the ball then goes back to Marquette under the basket with 0.8 seconds left. And it is, the point has been made that Chartouni layup and that effort that he gave down there, I was watching it saying, great, congratulations, you got the bucket. Doesn't matter. But it did matter, and that was one small little thing that got Marquette into the position where Sam Hauser has a chance for a three-point shot to tie the game.
This goes with maybe a theme of this game, and that's a well-coached team does something improbable because perhaps they're well-coached and they're not giving up. This is a never say never game if I've ever seen one. Mm-hmm. Wojo, you could say, and I think I've seen in the Twitter sphere, the Marquette Twitterverse, crediting Wojo with instilling some fire in the team with that tee he picked up in the second half. But there is literally no way Marquette wins this game if Chartouni doesn't get that and Creighton doesn't throw that long ball across the court with 0.8 seconds left, right? They inbound the ball under the basket, touch the ball, the game's over. Inbound it, we steal it, game's over without the chance to get the bucket. I mean, it was an incredible shot by Sam, but all things had to add up to that moment, and that's a never say die team that just did the improbable, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I want to say a couple things about the closing moments. First, before Chartouni had that bucket, the previous possession, I believe, Marcus kind of ran crazily at the rim with the ball and threw up a crazy shot.
I was screaming at my TV when he did that.
I was like, why would you go away from what's been working for you?
Yes!
And he went right to the one move that hasn't worked for him. And got packed, and at that point, everyone was kind of like, "All right, that's game." And then, like you said, the one catalyst additionally was neither team had timeouts. So Creighton, the guy was forced to inbounds, otherwise he would have turned it over under his hoop anyways. And not that this matters, and maybe I was just seeing things, but it looked like on the slow-mo replay that Sam went to intercept the pass in the backcourt, and their guy fouled him, kind of grabbed him from behind. It looked like a foul to me. Nothing was called, ball went out of bounds. It was great for Marquette because they got to inbound. Had they called that foul on Creighton, Sam would have got 2 shots. He would have had to make one and then miss intentionally, and we would have had to grab the ball, a lower probability of scoring than just having the ball on an inbounds to get a 3. So I think a little bit fortunate there too. There was just a lot going on, and then Sam is just so pure.
So
he went straight up. It wasn't like a normal shooting position. He caught the ball standing up, never brought it down like a big man, and just released.
Yeah. It was weird. So Creighton turns the ball over. Marquette gets the ball. They actually add 0.2 of a second back on the clock, so it goes from 0.6 to 0.8. And Markus Howard is in. I see Markus Howard going to the baseline to inbound the ball, and I'm like, wait, what? Why?
No timeouts for either.
Whose fucking decision is that? Yeah. And I'd love to hear the theory behind that. I don't know in what universe that is a good decision. Maybe you could say Markus Howard is one of your better passers. I don't know if I'd buy that, but so couple that kind of with the decision for Markus to drive the lane there with 17 seconds left instead of what had been doing, what had been working.
Well, judging by the comments post game from both Markus and Sam and Wojo, right? That seemed like a rehearsed scenario in one that they were just comfortable with Sam taking that shot in. Is that what you guys heard?
Well, so I saw Sam say, I knew Markus was going to throw the ball to me. And like, yeah.
Doesn't everyone in the stadium?
I mean,
that's fair.
I guess I don't question that it was rehearsed play. I just wonder, why is the rehearsed play that one of the best 3-point shooters of the last 20 years is not in the game, potentially taking a 3-point shot?
Right.
There has to be some logic behind it, but I don't know what logic would convince me that that's not a good idea.
Well, maybe in practice in that scenario, they've gone over, Sam in that situation and Markus in that situation, and Sam continues to deliver in practice, which is
it's true.
What it sounds like from everything we've heard, people who have observed those practices and the guys actually playing in them. Sam hits that shot over and over, so you give it to Sam. He's that closer hitting that shot.
Yeah.
Situational basketball, right?
Well, yeah, and I understand too, it probably creates a little confusion for the defense, especially when a guy has 53 points or, well, at that point, 40 or what. And they're used to keying on Markus the entire game. Oh shit, he's the inbounder. Now where's the ball going? I mean, the obvious choice is that it's going to Sam, but when there's no timeouts and no chance to get settled, you're just probably on defense panicking. Markus is the inbounder. Who do I cover? Type situation on D. But they did cover Sam well. It was an amazing catch.
That's right. The other thing, if you think about it, though, that's a good point, Mohan. I think you hinted at it, but Markus, throughout that game and throughout his career, he hits that shot by making a quick first step, pulling back in that fadeaway and hitting the three because of his height differential to the defender. You have a lengthy defender on Markus or him doubled. I don't know that he gets that shot off in that way he did, like you described Sam getting it off, Mohan. I think maybe that's actually why.
Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why Wojo's getting paid much more than we are. And we're just sitting here in our basement podcasting.
Not hard to get paid more than we are.
How demoralized would we be if we got that play and Jamal inbounded the ball to Markus and he got blocked on the final shot?
Oh, that would be bad.
Right.
So
his game would have been ruined despite, having 40-some points in regulation.
So, Mohan, you mentioned this, and it's been mentioned, but Markus throws, I call it a perfect lob pass to Sam. Sam makes a great grab, kind of going through some Creighton arms to get up and get it. And you're right, Mohan, Sam caught it, landed, but the ball didn't come down. Maybe he brought it down a few inches, but he just kind of spring-loaded and pushed it up.
All wrist.
It was all wrist. It wasn't a traditional shot, but good Lord, that was
a lift. I think that was what almost made him not get it off in time. Some would say he didn't get off in time, but call was made on the floor. I think I was watching the play and it felt like it was in slow motion. And I'm like, why is he jumping so high on this jump shot, dude? Just release it already. If you look at the replay, he gets some good air, but it's like, dude, you don't get.
So Eric, when you first saw the replay we got to still get to overtime here, so we shouldn't spend too much time on this. But when you first saw the replay of Sam putting up that shot, was your first reaction, he didn't get the ball off in time, or he did get it off in time? First reaction.
First reaction was I had no clue. I saw it and I was like, that is too close to call. I don't know. See some salty Jays fans out there saying certain things, having certain strong opinions on it. It was really hard to tell. I'm a go with the call on the floor kind of guy. So I'm glad the call went the way it did. Damn close though. As close as I've about ever seen.
During the live TV broadcast, the tape that they were showing on the TV, the film that they were showing on the TV, Sam's hand was really blurry. But Mohan, like as it was going through, it didn't seem to be HD quality that they were looking at, or at least that they were showing. So actually, in the TV review, there could be an argument made that the footage was blurry enough that you legitimately couldn't tell and had to stay with the call on the floor. I know that I've seen photos since that maybe dispute that a little bit, but nonetheless,
I totally agree. I think watching it on TV, that frame when the clock turned to 0. It was blurry on his fingers, and with the call on the floor that he made the shot, you couldn't definitively say that the ball had not been released from that camera angle.
Yep.
So I think that it was the right call. I'm sure my initial reaction was that he didn't get it off, but I think that was just me like being a Lions fan, expecting the worst to always happen. I was like, oh, no fucking way he got that off, because it was so beautiful. I think that was also, that kind of played into the ref's decision a little bit. They're like, that was such a pure game-ending play. Like, you can't overturn that shit on a question of maybe his fingers were a little blurry. You just give the guy the damn shot. He made the shot. 0.8. Who's to say that the clock guy didn't start the clock a tiny bit early anyway? I mean.
So Sam hits the shot. His teammates are running to him on the court. You can hear Sam in the background, kind of through the TV saying, check that shit. It was pretty funny. So they call it good. We're going to overtime, game tied at 85. At the beginning of overtime, here's the sequence that we have from Markus Howard. A 2-point jumper where I believe he almost made a guy fall over. I think that was this one, and he got it.
Oh, yeah. Can I just say?
Yeah.
This was my favorite play. I watched his if you go to the Big East basketball Twitter, I think it is, they have his complete highlights. It's floating around Twitter anyway.
Yeah.
But that first basket of overtime is probably his nastiest move all game. Yeah. He has that little like right-handed fake crossover and then crossover, and the guy basically just sits down. He's like, gives up. Marcus goes and hits the floater.
I think it was
filthy.
6'4" Tyshawn Alexander that he just made sit down on the court. It was
baby Tyshawn.
It was nasty, and he did the same thing against, I think it was Mitch Ballack, who's 6'5" at one point. So you talk about length being an issue for Marcus. I mean, shit, with that move, not an issue.
It's hard to defend when your legs are broken. That's just a fact.
When you have no ankles remaining on your feet, you can't do much.
I just wanted to shout out that play because that was my favorite play in Marcus's highlights.
It was amazing, and you should watch
it was our first lead of the entire game.
That's true.
We had not led until Marcus broke a guy's ankles and broke the seal.
It's really amazing the stat that you don't lead until overtime. That's pretty funny way to put it.
That's the Wojo,
special.
Never say die special right there.
Speaking of, have you guys seen the win probability chart for the game? I know it's been floating around Twitter a little bit and reported on, but it's completely insane. We're obviously down 5 with 3 seconds, then the Chartouni layup with 1 second, and with 0.3 seconds left, still down, the shot hadn't fallen. Creighton still had a 98.3% chance to win. According to Ken Palm, it was the most unlikely win of the season so far across college basketball. And I think that justifies what everyone's saying, best college basketball game of the year to date, and probably, could go down at the end of the regular season as the best college basketball game across the NCAA D1.
And I think Paint Touches tweeted out that also it was in the top 8 in the last 9 years in terms of
oh my god,
that's probable victories. So
honestly, reminiscent of that win probability chart after the Patriots-Dolphins game, if you guys saw that, where the Dolphins had that unbelievable
beautiful
last play of the game to take the Pats down. It's like that. It's an all-timer.
Well, and actually, probably toss in there that Marquette Davidson game from the tournament a few years ago where, Jamil Wilson, Vander hit a couple of threes, and we just stole that game. So Marcus breaks a guy's ankles, gets into the lane, hits a pretty little, 10?
Mid-range floater, yeah.
Mid-range floater, gets it in. He then proceeds to go from there. Next offensive possession, three-pointer, good. Next offensive possession, three-pointer, good. Next offensive possession, three-pointer, good.
He did it for Earnhardt.
Markus Howard had the first 11 points for Marquette in the overtime on sequential possessions. And even that didn't put the game away. Creighton kept hitting. That's how good this game was. Even though Markus Howard was doing what he was doing, Creighton kept coming back and kept hitting shots up until the last minute.
I mean, they deserved to win just as much as us. They were incredible the entire game. They just kept firing and hitting it. You expected them to miss one or two, and they just didn't. Yeah. And, I mean, they damn near played flawless offensive basketball the entire game. I think that the key was, some of the thing that turned around is some key defensive plays, like the blocks that Theo John had. We haven't mentioned him yet, but after Markus missed his layup, or was it the possession before, that Theo had the block from behind when they had the fast break. Yep. And that really turned that thing around because it looked like they would maybe even get fouled or something like that and put it out of reach. So it's those little – we might not be able to stop Creighton, but if you can get one or two big plays on defense when both offenses are hitting on all cylinders, those little plays are the difference.
And it wasn't just Theo, right? Ed had a few good plays. Ed had a big block like that. Chartouni had that nice steal and breakaway laying down the court. So in a game, Eric, of a 2-point victory in overtime where you're tying it with 0.8 seconds left, every single play like that matters.
No question. No question at all. I mean, you might look at this on its surface and say Theo John, 5 points in 24 minutes. Ed Morrow, 6 points, 14 minutes. Chartouni, 7 points, 16 minutes. Theo John had 4 blocks, including those 2 huge ones at the end of the game. Chartouni with some clutch plays, going late into the game. Ed Morrow, same thing. I mean, this is a team effort all around. In order for us to come out on top with that victory, it takes every single person on that roster. So shouts to everybody, not just Markus and Sam.
And I want to give a little bit more love to Chartouni. He only played 16 minutes. He had 1 turnover. So that's pretty good for his standards. He had that, steal and breakaway lay-in. He hit a couple of really big free throws. And I think Joey Hauser did 2 towards the end. There were a lot of free throws towards the end of overtime that we needed because Creighton was firing, as you said, on all cylinders. Chartouni and again, I believe Joey Hauser and Markus, of course, hit a number of free throws down there and just the cojones on these guys. So this is a great team win. Obviously, Markus Howard had his performance, but a great team win. I got to say, aside from Markus breaking his own career high, breaking a Big East record, which we should obviously mention as well, I think this was obviously the first time this season that we have seen Marquette win with its offense. We just got off making the point that there were key defensive plays in there. Of course there were. This game doesn't happen unless you have a prolific offensive performance from Markus, but a good offensive performance from the rest of the team. I didn't think we were going to see that from Marquette this year, to be quite honest with you, because I thought it was going to be Markus or bust. Maybe that's what this was. What do you guys think? Do you think we won with offense, or do you think it was a pretty even thing?
I think you shoot 57.1% from 3, 80% from the line, and 56% overall. You're winning with offense. More balanced perhaps than some games we saw last year, but this was the type of offensive effort we saw maybe a few times last year that really just carries you. It makes it almost impossible to lose.
So if any of you had been on our text message chain throughout the day, I think it was mainly the 3 of us piping in, there was a lot of NBA talk. And there was a lot of talk about where Mr. Howard, if he chooses to leave, if he goes to the NBA eventually, where he's going to end up. And Pete Mohan, you've already got your hand up for a point of contention here.
Well, I want Eric to go because I know he's got a lot of material on this, so I just want to throw this in before we pull the pond ripcord. But because I just did a little statistical digging here, because I was curious about Markus Howard's career 3-point numbers and like how that stacks up against the most prolific NBA 3-point shooters. So Markus. Okay, this stat is insane. It's impossible to probably even depict without a graph against his peers throughout college history. But so far in his career, Markus is averaging 45% from 3. 45% for his career on 7.1 attempts a game. That is an insane amount of volume. And usually guys who are taking that many threes a game are chuckers or they're not getting good attempts. And granted, Marcus has taken a lot of step backs and crazy threes. It's not like he's getting open looks this entire time.
Right.
Teams are keying on him with a hand in his face, and for a career averaging 45%. For comparison, a guy named Steph Curry, who admittedly is about 4 inches taller than Marcus, but for his NBA career is at about 44.5% at 7.3 attempts per game. So I'm not saying I'm just saying that's the stratosphere, though, that Marcus is in statistically as a 3-point threat, that it's just impossible for him to not have value, at least as a specialist in the NBA.
Couldn't agree more, Mohan. I think that's a perfect way to kick off the conversation about Marquette and his sort of NBA prospects and where he might project to with the future in the NBA. I think the first thing you have to look at is not elite shooting in accuracy. It's elite volume shooting numbers.
Right.
That's absolutely critical to him having a chance to succeed in the NBA. And, not only perhaps to be like a career reserve, but to have upside in the league as a spark plug offensive player. I think there's some questions we can discuss here, and these are a few things we're throwing around on the text chain. The first, naturally, is the question of size.
And what does he come in at, Eric? What's his height?
He comes in at 5'11" right now. His weight at 175 is what we list him at. For comparison, notable guys in the league over the last 5 to 10 years in that range. Right now, 3 players clock in shorter than that: Kay Felder, Isaiah Thomas, and Tyler Ulis, all at 5'9" to 5'10". Ty Lawson is a pretty notable name, 5'11", same height as Marcus. And then within an inch, you have a bevy of NBA players who have had success as shooters, success as creators, just success as well-rounded point guards at 6 feet tall. DJ Augustine, JJ Barea, Aaron Brooks, Darren Collison, Yogi Ferrell, Kyle Lowry, Jameer Nelson, Chris Paul, to name a few. You look at a guy like Fred VanVleet coming out of the NCAA not too long ago, 6 feet tall, having success alongside a 6 foot Kyle Lowry with the Raptors. I think one thing naturally that brings about the question of his size is his defensive limitations, whether he'll ever be a plus defender in the NBA. And I think we can all admit right now he may never achieve plus defender status or even serviceable defense against better NBA guards. I think that's just sort of being a realist here, but that's also not why an NBA team is going to draft Markus Howard. Marcus will be drafted to be a spark plug scorer off the bench, right, not a defensive stopper.
And he's coming into the league at a perfect time for his skill set. Right?
Hey, we hope he's not coming into the league.
Right.
Anytime.
Let's we should put a disclaimer. We would love for him to stay a full 4 years.
No.
And I also don't think that he should come out after this year. I mean, not even being selfish. I think that, you hit on some good stuff, Eric. I think that honestly for me, it's not his defense, because I think that actually Marcus has shown some really good improvement in his on the ball defense. He moves his feet really well. He stays low. I think he shows good fundamentals there, and he's athletic enough to stay with guys, at least for the most part. He's not blocking shots, but I think that he at least will be an average NBA defender. I don't think that his passing and distributing game is necessarily up to snuff. And more importantly than that, he hasn't proven that he can really go in amongst the trees with regularity down low and score at the hoop. That's my biggest issue is, yeah, he can break a guy down off the dribble, but unless he's hitting a floater, that's like where his game will stop in the NBA, because he just hasn't, to me at least, shown that he has that really strong physical game to the rack. I just think that he needs work on his distribution, and there's not a better way to train him for the NBA than playing in the Big East, going up against Big East caliber guards, and learning to distribute to a plethora of NBA caliber three-point threats that he has alongside him on the floor. I mean, that's really what he would be asked to do from a distribution standpoint in the NBA. He has the tools to basically simulate that while he's here, getting a lot of run. He's not a guy that would plug into an NBA lineup and be getting 20 minutes a game, I don't think. So, in my opinion, there's still things in his game that he can work on, and I think that the best habitat for that actually is Marquette.
I think one thing that's hard to quantify in this conversation is Marcus's leadership and how that translates and how that is actually a hugely attractive trait. His character, his poise, his maturity, his charisma, I think that'll all come across loud and clear in his pre-draft interviews. He has a lengthy resume when it comes to that too, not just at Marquette, but with USA Basketball. I'm willing to bet GMs, head coaches, and scouts will eat that stuff up. Even after last night's performance, he was effusive in praise of others and of his teammates. He always says the right thing. He always seems to be leading. And look at other upperclassmen who've recently been drafted in the second round or have come out undrafted and are now actually contributing on NBA teams. They're high character leadership guys who have played in situations like Mohan's talking about with proven production, and they're thriving. You'll get Jalen Brunson, Monty Morris, Alonzo Trier, Gary Clark. The list goes on. There's a pathway, a really clear pathway for Marcus to make it in this league. And I think what we've seen from Marcus is all he needs is that shot, because if he has that shot, he can show that he can shoot the lights out and he belongs.
I totally agree. I mean, I just want to say one more thing about, his leadership. I think that you hit the nail on the head, that it's one of his most impressive traits. I mean, the guy has no off the court issues. He's a good student. He's focused all the time on the court. You're never like, oh, I wish that dude would pay a little more attention to the game or stay focused. Always laser focused.
And somehow he's still doing it while he's just 17 years old. It's fucking
Well, actually, I did get
well, the point I was just going to try to make is it's not just Marcus, though. Like Sam, you could describe that way. Jamal Cain, you could describe that way. And I'm going to stop listing there, but we need to give Wojo some credit for building all of these amenable traits in our players and developing them into the type of men that we think we'll be proud of when these guys go on and maybe play in the NBA. When we see Marcus giving an interview post-game, you're going to be like, that dude is a boss. He's eloquent and humble, and I have to at least attest some of that to Wojo and the coaching staff. And there was so much fucking hand-wringing about Buzz and whatever other stuff was going on behind the scenes back in the day, and all the stuff that was on Scoop about, what's the culture like and blah blah blah. Well, you have to give credit where credit's due, and to the leadership at Marquette and everyone else. At the very least, they picked a guy in Wojo who is creating the type of people that we like to have on our team, and who have really genuine emotional and personal traits that lend themselves to leadership and playing well, and you got to give Wojo credit for building that culture.
Random side note from the junk drawer over here. Sports Illustrated called Sandy Cohen III one of 5 mid-major draft prospects to watch. Sorry, I had a hard time getting through that without laughing. Apparently he's in the midst of a huge season for UW Green Bay, the Phoenixes, where we know he transferred. So just congrats to Sandy.
Phoenixes.
So follow him if you're interested, but just a note from the junk drawer.
So with all of that said, all of the draft talk, all of the praise, Marquette still isn't first in the Big East. Marquette still has 3 losses on this season, despite the fact that it has been a really, really fun ride to this point. So next up, Marquette plays on Saturday, January 12th, just coming up here in a couple of days, a home game against Seton Hall. I can't wait to see what this atmosphere is like at home after this performance from Markus Howard, from Marquette, getting this huge win. Their first true road win of the year. We got to give them credit for that. Obviously, we've tweeted it out, and I think we mentioned it earlier. We know Wojo has a pretty good record in overtime. He's 10-2 lifetime as a head coach at Marquette.
10 in a row.
And he's won 10 in a row.
Good coaching wins games.
Guys, I can't say it enough. This has been a fun year so far, a really, really fun year. And we're just about halfway through the year. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to this episode. Signing off for Pete Mohan, signing off for Eric Pond. I'm your host, Mike Lavender. We'll talk to you next time here on the Real Chili Podcast.